Welcome to a presentation on neoclassical physics. Neophysics has the most accurate theories of physics. We challenge you to disprove us. If not, we welcome you to join us and profit from the new science. In this presentation, we discuss about ice albedo feedback concept and the effect of vertical heat mixing. These feedbacks and effects are enormously important to understand climatic processes. We shall basically toy around with the simplest possible equations which encompass these processes and try to understand its dynamics before incorporating them into a global scale model. So this is a gentle introduction to 1. Surface temperature controlled ice albedo feedback effect, and 2. The effect of temperature controlled vertical mixing. So this we do using an individual finite element unit. To begin with, we find that the coarseness in temporal resolution can itself cause significant errors. We could get 0.4 Kelvin warming and an excess radiation of 1.73 watt per meter square simply by enhancing the temporal resolution from 1 hour to 1 minute in the equatorial region. So after handling this accuracy, we define a simple surface temperature controlled albedo feedback mechanism scheme where the albedo switches between two discrete values depending on a cutoff temperature. We clearly see the two-state solution produced by such schemes and estimate their temperature response and equilibration timescales for a given perturbation. We do not see much difference in the equilibration time with albedo feedback mechanism switched on and without the albedo feedback mechanism. But the albedo feedback mechanism can produce permanent changes in a short time scale. It cannot produce very long time response time scale like multi-year or multi-decade, but a large multi-year or multi-decade response time is produced when we include vertical mixing of heat in this grid, in this calculation. If the subsurface temperature, that is there will be a subsurface when we include vertical mixing process. If the subsurface temperature can be linked to radiation perturbations at the surface, then we can easily get multi-year internal oscillations from this vertical mixing mechanism. So we cannot get the multi-year variation scale from the albedo feedback mechanism, but from vertical mixing it's easy to get. So this is the basic schematic of the calculations we do in this discussion. So this is the sun which moves across the sky in a circular path. This is a patch of some material which gets heated and cooled by the daily diurnal variation of radiation. In the finite element method, we assume that the surface of the celestial object, like a planet or moon, is made up of several such unit material elements. So consider an individual such material element. Suppose it is being forced by a diurnal variation of the solar radiation. For 12 hours, this surface is exposed to sun, and the radiation has a sinusoidal variation during this time. And for the next 12 hours, it is dark. So this material is not getting any radiation, it's just losing heat. This element is like a material unit at the equator on an untilted Earth. So let's say I is the intensity of the incoming solar radiation that is absorbed or available at the surface. Alpha is the albedo or the reflectivity. Small t is the time. X is the period of diurnal variation. So 2 pi t by x is a measure of the insolation angle, that is theta. Theta equals 2 pi t by x. This gives the angle at which the sun is inclined. And this is also equivalent to the longitude angle. See, this theta is actually equivalent to the longitude angle on an untilted rotated Earth. On an untilted Earth. And this phi is like the longitude. We said phi equals 0. That's not important here. So basically this is the equation we get. During the daytime, when the time is between 0 and 12 hours. This x we take as the period of Earth, diurnal period on Earth. X is 24 hours, so x by 2 is 12 hours. So if the time is between 0 and 12 hours, we see the sinusoidal variation of the radiation. And at night time, when the time is between 12 hours and 24 hours, we see there is zero radiation. There is no radiation forcing. I is 0. So this describes the diurnal variation, and we set phi equals 0, and hence this situation is like a material unit at the equator on an untilted Earth. So the rate of heating per unit area of this material element is given by this radiation energy balance equation. So rho hc dt by dt equals I minus sigma T power 4. I is the instantaneous radiation defined here in this equation. Sigma T power 4 is the Stefan-Boltzmann radiation loss, where T is the temperature of this surface. So dt by dt is the time rate of change of the temperature. Small t is the time. This rho hc is the material parameter. Rho is the density of this material, h is the height of this material, and c is the specific heat. So from this quantity I, which is the instantaneous intensity of solar radiation, we can define temperature, an equivalent temperature. This can be expressed as I by sigma, fourth root of I by sigma. We call it TEQ, which stands for this solar equivalent temperature. So we define the solar equivalent temperature at each moment in time using this instantaneous solar radiation for comparison. So this is the also the temperature a surface would reach if it had zero equilibration time. That is, or it reaches the radiative equilibrium in an instant. Also, when rho hc tends to 0, this product rho hc here in this heat radiation balance equation, radiation energy balance equation, if rho hc tends to 0, then also we see this temperature, the behavior of this material we see as defined by this temperature TEQ at each moment. The calculation of time averaged radiation, I subscript AV, and the time averaged equivalent temperature, time averaged equivalent temperatures, TEQ AV. So these two are time averaged quantities, whatever with subscript AV. These are calculated from instantaneous values. This I is calculated from instantaneous solar radiation using this. This is we try to approximate this, basically this integral 0 time equals over one cycle we want to find the time average of IAV. And similarly for this equivalent temperature TEQ, we do time averaging by the same process. So if we calculate this IAV and TEQ AV, the equivalent temperature averages, time averages, by sampling the variables at different time resolutions. So suppose we sample these variables IAV or TEQ, TAV at different resolution, 1/10 of a resolution, 1/10 of a second resolution, 1 second resolution, 1 minute, 10 minute, 1 hour, and so we calculate at different time resolution. And we see that the values are slightly different from each other. So if we consider the 1/10 second time resolution as the real value, then there is an underestimation error of 1.73 watt per meter square in the 1 hour averaged in the 1 hour resolution averaged solar intensity. So that is basically we have sampled the solar radiation at 1 hour and taken the averages of all that, and we find IAV as 301.2983. But if in the real case or 1/10 of a second resolution, we get the IAV as 303.031. So the difference between these two is 1.73 watt per meter square, which is pretty significant compared to the radiative forcing values. That is the anthropogenic radiative forcing values. So, and at the same time, as this temperature, as this radiation error happens, we see that the average equivalent solar temperature, that is this, the average equivalent solar temperature also drops by 6.88 Kelvin in the 1 hour calculation. So in the 1/10 of a second calculation, the TEQ average we find as 154.679 something, And in the 1 hour sampling case, if we sample the 1 hour values, take the average of those 1 hour values, we get only 147.80. So this is not happening due to any physics. This is purely happening due to the statistical averaging of this variation with different time resolution averaging. So, and also this TAV, we can define TAV is the temperature equivalent to this IAV. TAV is defined as IAV by sigma 4th root of this. And also we see that in TAV also there is this value at 1/10 of a second is 270.38 something, and here it is 269.99 at 1 hour resolution, and there is an error of about 0.4 Kelvin here. So also note that the 270.4 Kelvin here that we find here is the upper temperature limit of the system, which we get when the period of oscillation, that is X, tends to 0, or the oscillation is very fast oscillation. And the other temperature, 154.7, is the lower temperature limit of the system, which we get when the period of oscillation tends to infinity, or very slow oscillation. So these in our radiative equilibrium, radiative energy balance equation, if we solve under different limits, x tending to 0, x tending to infinity, we get these two temperature values, TAV and TEQAV. So these are the two limits basically. If x tends to 0, x is the period. If the period of oscillation tends to infinity, or when the oscillation is very slow, or when the rho HC product that we saw, rho HC tends to 0, which is the low heat capacity limit, in both these conditions we get the lower temperature limit, TEQAV, which is 154.7 Kelvin. And in the other case, when x tends to 0, when the period of the oscillation is very small, or the the oscillation is very fast, or when rho HC, the product, is tending to infinity, that is the high heat capacity limit, then we get the upper limit temperature, which is 270.38 or 270.4 Kelvin. So these are the two limits that we get under different conditions. So this temporal error, the resolution error, possibly means that for better accuracy, the variables involving the solar radiation on Earth must be modeled, and also the data analyzed at less than 1 minute temporal resolution. That is, if we want much better accuracy than 1 to watt per meter square accuracy. In the following discussion, all the calculations are done with 1 minute time resolution, but the graphs may be displayed with hourly samples or daily average values from this minute-wise data in some cases. We shall estimate the spatial error and the total error due to this spatial and temporal grid coarseness around the globe in a future article. So with better accuracy, let us now numerically simulate the energy balance equations using either water or soil based material elements. So these are the parameters. When we say water, we use 1000 kg per meter cube as density, height as 1 meter, and specific heat as 14181. And when we say dry soil, we use these parameters: 1600 kg per meter cube, 0.1 meter height, and 730 joule per kg per Kelvin specific heat. So whenever we mention, these are the parameters that we use in our calculations. So, and also note that the rho HC, which is the product of these three values for water, is 4.181 into 10 power 6, and the rho HC for soil is 1.16 into 10 power 5. So this rho HC of water is pretty high compared to this. It's about 35 times higher. And so for a few sample simulation of water and soil surface layers, these are the maximum, minimum, and the daily average temperature values we get. So with water and albedo, the reflectivity as 0.3, we get these values. With dry soil with 0.3 we get these values. We shall look at the detailed graphical versions of this data in this in the next slide. We'll describe these values. And also note that say for example, the temperature average produced by this water layer is 270.4, and the temperature average produced by this soil layer is 263.3. So which basically means that at the same albedo, the different materials will produce different temperature response, basically depending on this rho HC product. And also we note that the range of temperature, that is Tmax to Tmin range, is very small in case of water. It is about 3.5 Kelvin to 68.7 to 272. Whereas in case of this dry soil, it's more than 100 Kelvin. It has a maxima, very high maxima of 322 Kelvin and a very low minima of 214.5 Kelvin. So we'll describe them in detail in the next slide. So this figure shows the response of water surface element to diurnally varying input radiation. So the intensity of this received solar radiation in equivalent temperature units, that is TEQ, is plotted in blue. The daily averaged value is also overlaid in blue. So this horizontal line shows, blue line shows the daily average of this blue line. So this is the instantaneous radiation, this curved blue line. This straight line, horizontal line, is the daily average value. The scale for this blue lines is given on the right, and the time resolution is 1 minute. And the red curve is the instantaneous water temperature, this red curve, and the daily averaged water temperature is also plotted in red, and the scale is on the left. So we see this 270.4 and this is 154.6 something. So and here we see the response of soil surface element to varying radiation input. The red curve is the same as the water temperature that we saw earlier. The scale is on the left. The black line is the instantaneous soil temperature. The daily averaged soil temperature is also plotted in black, this horizontal line. It has 263.3 Kelvin average. And the scale is on the right. We can note that the water temperature has a very small range. It varies from about 268.5 to 272 Kelvin. Whereas the soil temperature has a very huge range from 220 Kelvin to 320 Kelvin. So the product ρHc for water is higher than that for the soil. ρHc for water is greater than ρHc for soil. And this implies that the water can store more heat than the soil at the same temperature. Due to this higher ρHc, the temperature extremity, that is this value Tmax minus Tmin in case of water, is much lower. It is only 3.7 Kelvin. So 272.1 minus 268.7. This difference is only 3.7 Kelvin, the range of the temperature. Than in case of soil, which is 107.5 Kelvin. That is 322 minus 214. This has a range of 107.5 Kelvin, whereas in case of water with higher ρHc is only 3.7 Kelvin. As seen from these values from this table. And the average temperature of the water is higher. This is 270.4 Kelvin than the average temperature of the soil, 263.3 Kelvin at the same albedo 0.3. So we also noted that this ρHc, when the ρHc value tends to 0, when it is less, we get this lower limit solution as seen here. When ρHc is less, we get lower average temperature. And when ρHc is tending to infinity, we get the upper limit solution at 270.4. Also, the materials with low ρHc product have a low equilibration time. That is, starting from the same initial condition, low ρHc materials reach steady state faster than high ρHc materials under the same radiation forcing conditions. So let us now move on to the ice albedo effect. So consider a phase change kind of scenario where when water shifts from liquid to ice phase, its reflectivity increases. Suppose in our equation we consider a similar process where the reflectivity or albedo has two possible values and a cutoff temperature T0, which determines which possibility is realized in any situation. So this alpha is a function of temperature. The albedo is a function of temperature. If the temperature is higher than this cutoff temperature T0, then albedo is low, which is 0.3. If the temperature is lower than or equal to this cutoff temperature T0, if the temperature is low, then the albedo is fixed high, 0.6. So these are the two values the albedo can have in this system. So if alpha is constant, such that alpha equals 0.3 in the whole time range, or alpha equals 0.6 in the whole time range, we get a steady state solution from the radiative energy balance equation, and we have discussed this already. The steady state solution for alpha equals 0.3 is shown by this red line, and for alpha equals 0.6 is shown by this black line. So we know the Tmax, Tmin, and the average temperature and all of the characteristics for these two red and black lines. These are the climate states, suppose. So in case of the albedo feedback, the alpha value shifts between 0.3 and 0.6. So the behavior of the albedo feedback, overall behavior of the albedo feedback equation will depend on the characteristics of these two steady state solutions, that is the red and black lines. So if the cutoff temperature T0, this is T0 is greater than or equal to 268.7, that is if T0 is greater than the minima Tmin in this alpha equals 0.3 steady state solution, in the higher temperature state solution. If Tmin T0, the cutoff temperature, is greater than this, then there is only one possible solution, that is the solution with alpha equal 0.6. That is, all these points will shift to this state. So if suppose there is a cutoff here higher than 268.7, and there are few points in this which are below the cutoff, so those will get reassigned. The albedo over those points will get reassigned to 0.6, so their temperature will go down, and this causes their next time point temperatures also to go down. And when they go down enough, their albedo also increases to 0.6. So this actually causes a domino kind of effect, where all these points then falls down to this state. So if the temperature cutoff is anywhere above this black line here, 268.7, then we get then the system shifts from a higher temperature state to a lower temperature state. And if the cutoff temperature T0 is less than 236.7, that is, it is lesser than this maxima Tmax that we get from with alpha equals 0.6 solution. So this is the steady state solution with alpha equals 0.6. If T0 is lesser than 236.7, if it is anywhere below this, then there is only one possible solution, the solution with alpha equals 0.3. So all these points here will be relocated to the higher temperature state. If the cutoff temperature T0 is between these two values, it's in this range between 236.1 and 268.7, in between these two solutions, in this whole range between these two. If T0 is anywhere in between this, then there will be two state solution with two neatly separated states, neatly separated steady states. Depending on the initial condition, the system enters one of the two states. A sufficiently large perturbation can push the system from one state to another, but the response times may be very short, not multi-year or multi-decade timescales with this albedo feedback mechanism. But with sufficient perturbation, we can shift from a higher temperature state to lower state, or from lower state to higher state. So this figure shows the two-state solution possible due to the two albedo states, 0.3 and 0.6, and the evolution of the water surface temperature starting from an initial temperature of 249 Kelvin is shown in black. This is the one going down, and with initial temperature 250 Kelvin is shown in red. So here in this figure, 250 Kelvin, the T0 is 250 Kelvin, that is the cutoff temperature is 250 Kelvin. And thus, if we start with an initial temperature of 250 Kelvin or above, if the initial temperature is here either 250 or above, then the solution ends up in the low albedo or high temperature state on this red line. And if the initial temperature is even slightly below 250 Kelvin, then it ends up in the high albedo or low temperature state on this, shown in this black line. So visually, the equilibration time seems to be about 1500 to 2000 hours, or 60 to 80 days. So this whole line we have shown up to about 2500 hours. So we can see by about 2000 hours, it levels off. It becomes the steady state. It acquires the steady state solution. But in fact, it needs close to about 200 days, not 60-80 days. It needs close to about 200 days to equilibrate perfectly. Perfectly, we mean by with 7 to 8 decimal accuracy. They'll come back to the steady state. So we spin up our model by at least 400 days with 1 minute resolution before reading out the steady state solutions for these runs. Suppose we create a dimming perturbation where we dim the solar radiation for a few days. In one scenario, we dim the solar perturbation with alpha equals 0.9. That is, we set the albedo as 0.9 for 4 days, which is shown in this blue line. So this blue line is this blue and green line both show the diurnally varying solar radiation, and this is ours, hourly varying diurnal solar radiation. So this is the peak at noon, and this is the zero value at night. And we see these 4 days are subdued in this blue line. So these 4 days are subdued, and on these days this is the perturbed days, we have set alpha equals 0.9. And in another scenario, we dim the solar radiation for 5 days. This green line shows the 5-day dimming. It starts here. These 3 days, there is a green line behind these 3 blue lines, and there are 2 other low green lines. This is the 5-day perturbation of green. So these are the perturbations we give to the external radiation, see what happens to the temperature. So this is the result. The red line is the steady state solution with higher temperature we saw earlier. This is the lower albedo state, and the black is the steady state with lower temperature, a higher albedo. We already saw these are the 2-state solutions. The blue and the green line are the evolution of water surface temperature with 4 and 5-day disturbance respectively. So the blue line is with the 4-day perturbation, and the green line is with the 5-day perturbation. In the 4-day dimming scenario, the minimum temperature does not go below the cutoff temperature T0. So even after this 4-day perturbations, by setting alpha equals 0.9, it just maybe reaches just about 250 Kelvin. So hence it relaxes back to the original state after perturbation, this 4-day perturbation. However, in the 5-day dimming scenario, the minimum temperature breaches T0. It goes below the cutoff point. It goes below 250 Kelvin. Hence, it switches to a colder state solution from a warmer state. This green line was in the warmer state. After the perturbation, it switches to a colder state solution. Even though the perturbed states seem to get back close to a steady state in about 1000 hours or about 42 days, it needs about 4000 days or about 167 days in total to fully reach a steady state. So but by about 40-50 days they are already close. They're pretty close, but still, in order to be exactly close and exactly the same, they'll need about 4000 hours. We can also note that with the shift of the state of the system from alpha equals 0.3 to 0.6, when the system shifts from one of the steady state to another, 0.3 to 0.6, the radiation received also reduces due to this enhanced albedo. We can notice that in the reduction in the green line maxima radiation after perturbation. So this is the perturbation, this is after perturbation. We see that green line maxima is not as high as this blue line maxima. This is because in this green line case the albedo is higher, 0.6, and in this blue line case the albedo is only 0.3. So this change of state, like this change of maxima in the green line, this is a permanent change of state which can be undone only with a sufficient perturbation depending on the tipping point temperature T0. If the new perturbation causes the temperature to go above this tipping temperature T0, then the system can shift from the low state to higher temperature state. So these are the equilibration time scale of albedo feedback mechanism. These figures again show the same equilibration time scale. These are now having 14-day perturbation. These have longer duration perturbations. These are the daily averaged incoming solar radiation in equivalent temperature units, TEQ units, with albedo feedback. That is, the solar radiation with albedo feedback is shown in this blue. So the blue lines are all the solar equivalent temperature with perturbation. It shows the external perturbation as a dip in the blue line. So for about 14 days there is an extremely low value of equivalent temperature drops from about this 150 to 90 Kelvin. So this is the perturbation we caused by setting alpha equals 0.9. And in red, it shows the surface temperature without any albedo feedback. So this is just the normal material unit without any feedback effect. And this black line is with the albedo feedback effect. So, in all these three figures. And we have also shown the case of these double perturbations. So here there are two perturbations of 14 days each, separated by about a month. And here also there are two perturbations. There is a double perturbation here, but the second perturbation is opposing the first perturbation. So we call it the double opposing perturbation, and this is the double perturbation. So we conduct these three experiments and we study the response time scale for these perturbations. And all the values here are daily averages. So these figures, these are the same as what we saw in the previous slide. So these figures shows that the temperature response with longer or the 14-day perturbations, in these also we again see an equilibration time of about 4,000 hours, and that there is not much difference between the response time with albedo feedback mechanism and without albedo feedback mechanism. So there is not much difference between the equilibration characteristics of this black and the blue line here and also here. So in the right panel, however, the albedo feedback can cause permanent change of state as shown by the black line here. So it starts at around 270 and it drops to around 235 Kelvin after the perturbation. So this is a change of state. Even in the right panel, the change of state is visible for a short time as this low value black line segment before the second perturbation. Since the second perturbation is sufficiently large in this case and is in the opposite direction of the first perturbation in this panel, the system shifts back to the warm state. So after the first perturbation, this black line had shifted to the colder state, and after the second opposing perturbation, it shifts back to the warm state. And this is what these perturbations cause. And also we see that the blue line also shifts back to its former undisturbed value. So this was the undisturbed value of solar equivalent temperature. It in the first perturbation it drops to here, and after the perturbation is gone, since the black line has reached a higher albedo state, this blue line also has low values. And after the second opposing perturbation, the black line goes to the upper temperature state, and albedo is also goes back to this higher state. The not albedo, the solar equivalent temperature. So even though the albedo feedback can cause permanent changes, it cannot produce large response timescales like multi-year or multi-decade variations. A large response timescale is produced when we include vertical mixing of the heat. Here, the fast responding surface layer is coupled to a large heat storage reservoir below. The response time of this heat storage or the layer below is very slow. The reservoir response time is mainly dependent on the rate of heat mixing and also its size. This mechanism also alters the height of the surface layer and thus alters the heat storage capacity of the top layer at each moment in time. We assume both these layers are same material, that is water, with the same density and same specific heat values for simplicity. And we also assume that this total height H1 plus H2 is constant. That is, the whole material is conserved within this height and there is no other material there. No other material or no other layers below or above this. So let us conduct some vertical mixing experiments using this model with an enhanced perturbation timescale. We enhance the perturbation timescale to about 21 days in order to more clearly see the subsurface temperature variations and response. In the vertical mixing case, the response time can rise to several years to several decades, from about 100 to 200 days as seen in the case of albedo feedback mechanism. So also because of this increase in the response time scale, we need to do longer runs, much longer runs than without this mixing effect. So this figure shows the schematic used to numerically simulate the vertical mixing process. On the left, we see the status of the system at time step t minus 1, that is the previous time step. In the first part of the calculation, we use these surface temperature values in the radiative energy balance equation to get the intermediate temperature value T star. In the second part of the calculation, either a portion of the subsurface layer gets mixed with either a portion of the surface layer gets mixed with the bottom layer, or a portion of the bottom layer gets mixed with the surface layer. Either of these cases can happen, and during this mixing, the height change of these layers is determined by the two layer temperatures of these two layers. So H1 or the height of the first layer at this time T depends on the value of T1 star T, or indirectly on temperature T1 at the previous time step T minus 1. But H1T is actually inversely proportional to T1 star T. That is what we assume. This is a simple linear relationship we assume between H1T and T1 star. It has an inverse relationship. That is, when T1 star becomes high, H1 becomes low, giving up heat to the bottom layer. And when T1 star becomes low, H1 becomes high, trying to take up heat from the lower layer, if it is available. So this H1T can also depend on T2 at the previous time step, T2 T minus 1, in a similar fashion. So we can assume another linear, add another linear simple term here. But H1 will be directly proportional to T2 to the bottom layer temperature. This layer height will be directly proportional, unlike the inverse proportionality in case of T1 star or T1. Hence, when the height of the top layer increases, when H1T is greater than H1T minus 1, that is when the height of the surface layer increases, it means that it mixes with the bottom layer. If delta is the change in the height, H1T minus previous time height, H1T minus H1T minus 1, then the surface layer with height H1T minus 1 and temperature T1 star mixes with the bottom layer with height, this delta. The excess delta that the height that the top layer increases is basically coming from the bottom layer. So a portion of bottom layer of height delta and temperature T2 minus 1 in the previous time step T2, it mixes and changes the temperature of the top surface, and the bottom surface layer temperature remains undisturbed because it's just giving up a portion of its layer. It's not getting mixed with the top layer. It's just giving a layer, and the top layer is getting mixed. So in this case, when the height of the top layer increases, it takes up some water from the bottom layer and gets mixed. When H12 is less than H12 minus 1, or when the top layer height reduces or the bottom layer height increases, that is, so if delta is the change in the height of the bottom layer, H2T minus H2T minus 1, then surface layer with height delta, so this excess height that the bottom layer H2 gains is basically coming from the top layer. A portion of the top layer delta with height delta and temperature T1 star mixes with the bottom layer, changes its temperature, and goes to a newer state. And during this process, the top layer temperature remains undisturbed in this step. So these are the two processes that can happen. These are the two mixing processes that we have incorporated into the model. And these are the results of the incorporation. So these are the results we get after including the vertical mixing. So this shows the equilibration time scale of the vertical mixing mechanism. It shows all the things. Basically, on the left is the panel with a single perturbation. So there is only one perturbation here. And on the right, we see double perturbation. So the double radiation perturbation runs here. In the black, we see that the black lines are basically temperatures with no vertical mixing, no albedo. These are the simple material units, no feedback, no mixing. Green is the one with albedo feedback. It does not have mixing, no mixing, but with albedo feedback. Red is the one with mixing but no albedo feedback, only mixing here. And blue is the one with both. It has both the mixing and albedo feedback effects in the blue line. Similarly, in the right panel, these are the lines are the same, but for double perturbation case. Like in the previous perturbation figures, even here we can see that the equilibration time of the albedo feedback mechanism is practically same as the equilibration time without the albedo feedback mechanism. However, the albedo feedback can cause permanent change in the state of the system as noted earlier, but it cannot cause long-term variations like multi-year or multi-decade variations. We can also see that the blue lines and also red lines partially are still far away from the final steady state values. In the long term, the blue lines should meet these green lines in both the panels, and the red line should meet the black. The green line in this portion is the higher albedo or lower temperature state of the two possible steady state solution under the albedo feedback mechanism. When we extend the graph, we indeed see that the blue line converges towards the green line slowly. The real equilibration time in case of these blue lines can be clearly seen from the subsurface temperature variations in this scenario with vertical mixing. So basically the signature is carried by the subsurface temperature in a much clearer way. Also note that the blue lines seem to have much longer response time because it has both albedo effect and mixing effect than the red line which has only mixing effect without the albedo effect. So these are the subsurface temperature. This again shows the equilibration time of the vertical mixing mechanism. The left panel is for the single perturbation case. The right panel is for the double perturbation case. And on the left, in the red is the cases with vertical mixing but no albedo feedback, and blue is the case with both vertical mixing and albedo feedback switched on. So from both these single and double perturbation figures, we see that the evolution of the subsurface temperature, we note that the subsurface temperature has a very long response time scale. Visually, it appears as about 1,20,000 or 120,000 to 130,000 hours, or about 14 to 15 years. That is, the perturbation ends at 120,500 hours, and the steady state is reached only after 240,000 to 250,000 hours. So there is a gap of about 120,000 to 130,000 hours between the end of the perturbation and reaching of the steady state. So even in the double opposing perturbation case shown later, we see the same multi-year response time scale. So these are the figures with double perturbation, but with double opposing perturbation. The second perturbation opposes the first perturbation. This is for the surface temperature. These are the values for the surface temperature. The same color code. The black is with no mixing, no feedback. Red is with only mixing. Green is with only albedo feedback, and blue is with both albedo feedback and mixing. So here we don't see anything dramatic. All the surface temperatures seem to equilibrate at more or less at the same time as this black line, which is very less, and it's about within about 2,000-3,000 hours, about 4,000 hours max. They all are getting equilibrated. We don't see any significant signature at the surface. But however, if we see at the subsurface temperature, even in case of the double opposing perturbation, we see a long response time. So this is the equilibration time. In red we see these are all subsurface temperature. In red we see the case with only vertical mixing, no albedo feedback effect. In blue we see both vertical mixing and the albedo feedback effect. These red and blue are for double opposing perturbation case. We've also shown single perturbation subsurface profile with mixing in black. This is just the single perturbation. And in cyan, in this color, we have shown double perturbation subsurface temperature profile. These both don't have a feedback mechanism, because if the feedback mechanism was there, it would have settled in a different temperature state. We are just showing comparing the double opposing perturbation response time with both the double perturbation without any opposition, double perturbation or single perturbation. Actually, in all these profiles, we see that the response time scale is more or less the same. It's about 120,000 to 130,000 hours. There is not much difference caused by these slight variations in the parameters of this subsurface temperature. So they all produce a very large 14 to 15 years, 15 time scale variation. So if we link the external radiation perturbations with the subsurface temperature, then we can easily get multi-year oscillations. In case of absence of the surface temperature controlled albedo feedback, we just need to link the subsurface temperature with a single perturbation. Say every time the subsurface temperature crosses 270 Kelvin or some such higher temperature cutoff, say it triggers an external radiation perturbation here. So this radiation perturbation, lowered radiation perturbation, can cause a rapid cooling of the subsurface temperature and a slow warming with a multi-year timescale. So after several years, the subsurface warms above 270 Kelvin and again triggers the radiation perturbation event, and again this triggers the cooling event, rapid cooling, and the multi-year cycle continues. It could be actually possible to couple the subsurface layer with rainfall. Say high subsurface temperature leads to enhanced rainfall, which causes enhanced heat loss from the surface and enhanced albedo at the top of the atmosphere, which lowers the energy available at the surface, which in turn triggers a lower long-term cooling warming cycle of the subsurface. So and then the cycle can be continued if we couple this subsurface temperature with the radiation perturbation at the surface. Here the radiation perturbation is caused by rainfall. Even in case of the surface temperature controlled albedo feedback, we can produce these long-term multi-year time scales oscillation by coupling this subsurface temperature with the double opposing perturbation. Here we need the second opposing perturbation to get the subsurface temperature back to higher level, because otherwise if there is only single perturbation with albedo feedback, if it is high enough, the overall state of the system shifts to the lower temperature state and it will not form this cycle. So if albedo feedback kicks in and shifts the lower temperature state, this cycle goes off. But as long as it's in the higher temperature state and this cycle is removed, we get this multi-year to multi-decade oscillation timescale by coupling the subsurface temperature with radiation perturbation at the surface. So in this presentation, we made some introductory observations about 1. Surface temperature controlled ice albedo feedback effect, and 2. The effect of temperature controlled vertical mixing using an individual finite element unit. We found that enhancing temporal resolution can itself cause a 0.4 Kelvin warming and an excess radiation of 1.73 watt per meter square when we shift from 1 hour to 1 minute resolution in the equatorial region. Then we discussed the two-state solutions produced by the albedo feedback mechanism. We also discussed the criteria which switches the system from one state to another, and also saw the response time scales to perturbations. We do not see much difference in the equilibration time with albedo feedback mechanism switched on and the albedo feedback mechanism switched off. But the albedo feedback can produce permanent changes in a short time scale. A large multi-year response time is produced when we include vertical mixing of heat. And in the model with vertical mixing, if the subsurface temperature can be linked to radiation perturbations at the surface, then we can easily get multi-year internal oscillations in the climate system from the vertical mixing mechanism. In future, we shall incorporate these mechanisms in a full-scale global model and study its mechanics. So we end this here. Thank you. If you want to understand the concepts of physics in the clearest way, regardless of the concerns about scoring high marks in exams, please visit neophysics.com. Thank you again.